Hello friends, I am Dr. Vijay Prakash and today I will be continuing with the topic which we started 2 weeks back, that was on overdentures. So in overdentures what we had discussed was the definition of overdentures, the uh, the advantages, disadvantages, indications, contraindications, the principles on which overdenture concept is based on, that is to preserve bone, preserve proprioception, and to increase or enhance the stability and retention of the prosthesis. Next, we want to know how to select a patient for overdentures. So patient selection is very important whenever we are going for an overdenture treatment, because you have to keep in mind the principles of preventive prosthodontics, and there is no better example than overdentures. So patient selection. One, we need to decide whatever and how many teeth which are remaining in the arch, whether you can convert them into a fixed prosthesis or a removal prosthesis. If you can, then do that. You prefer that over an overdenture. But suppose if the remaining teeth in the arch are not that good or periodontally not that sound, so in order, just before extraction, give it a thought that you can preserve them and give an overdenture so that you can preserve bone. That is very important. You can preserve proprioception, that is a positive sensory feedback system, and thirdly, you can increase the retention and stability of the prosthesis. So definitely, first thing, if there is a possibility of fixed or removable partial dentures, do that and prefer that first. Secondly, you have to assess the periodontal status of the remaining teeth. If you find there is gingival recession, there is bone loss, there is attachment loss, there are periodontal pockets, then in order to preserve those abutment teeth, make sure that you do a periodontal therapy, any kind of periodontal graft treatment or soft tissue graft. In any way, you increase the, you do gingival curettage and root planing so that you preserve and improve the periodontal health of the remaining teeth. Third is, most of the time which you see is the endodontic therapy. Most of the time when you see the remaining teeth, there are few remaining teeth, and in order to give an overdenture, you require space. You require adequate interarch space. So in order to provide an adequate interarch space, you will be requiring to do the endodontic treatment of the teeth. Sometimes because of caries, the teeth are so damaged that you have to do endodontic treatment. So first you do endodontic treatment and then you proceed with your further treatment of overdentures. So endodontic therapy, in order to preserve the height, because whenever you are doing reduction, say this is the tooth structure and you have, say, the reduction. Now when you are reducing, when you have the crown root ratio, when you are reducing the tooth, when you are reducing the crown, in order to have space for the coping also, you need to do reduction. So when you are reducing so much of tooth structure, definitely the patient will be having sensitivity. In that case, you will be requiring to do endodontic therapy. So you have to do endodontic treatment. Next is caries. Yes, when you are preserving natural teeth, the teeth are susceptible to caries. In order, how much you have to decide whether the patient is coming in a high caries index or low caries index. According to that, you decide what type of treatment or what type of attachment you are going to give to this kind of patient. So caries, in order to protect the teeth, the remaining teeth from caries, you can do some kind of fluoride treatment like APF treatment, acidated phosphate fluoride. You can apply on the remaining tooth portion, or you can use 2% of stannous fluoride. That will definitely protect the teeth from further caries. Next, consider the age of the patient. This is very important factor in deciding whether you want to do an overdenture treatment or not. Now, in a patient such as young patient who's having congenital defect like cleft lip and cleft palate patients, or the patient is having partial anodontia, amelogenesis imperfecta. So wherever there is very few teeth, you have to make sure, and the patient is young, make sure always you want to preserve the teeth. Never go for extraction. That should be a first line of treatment. Always preserve the teeth, no matter what. Next is location of the abutment. This is also a very important factor in considering the patient. Now, suppose the remaining teeth, you have one tooth here, one tooth here, one tooth here. Always remember, if you have number of teeth here, don't never extract on the opposing arch. Never extract this tooth, because this tooth, always preserve this tooth, because this tooth on the opposing side will provide cross arch stabilization of the prosthesis. So this is going to provide you cross arch stabilization. So definitely preserve even a single tooth on the opposing arch. You should do that. Next is the cost of the treatment. Of course, cost of the treatment is important for the patient. Where you find the teeth are very poor prognosis, then in those cases you have to make a choice, or you have to tell the patient the cost of the treatment in order to preserve the teeth, and the cost wherein if you are increasing the cost and the prognosis of your treatment is not that good, then it is better to extract rather than just hanging on with preserving the teeth. So these are the patient selection criteria where you have to you can decide how to select a patient for overdentures. Now so the approaches can be three types. You have non-coping, telescopic overdentures, and attachments. Primarily three. Now in this, what we see, non-coping means when you have low caries, the patient is having remaining teeth which are sound, healthy, and you want to give an overdentures. So, and the patient is having low caries. So after periodontal treatment, you can, and the patient is also having adequate interarch space. So in those cases, you just directly prepare the teeth, and over that you can give an overdenture. So that is, you are not giving any coping. That is a bare tooth or non-coping overdenture. Next is a telescopic overdenture. Telescopic overdenture means in situations like this, where you are having a tooth, you are reducing the tooth, and then you are covering it with a cast coping. So you cover it with a cast coping. So that is a type of overdenture wherein you are having teeth which is covered with a cast coping, so that you reduce, you eliminate the patient's sensitivity, and also you are covering and protecting the remaining tooth. But nevertheless, in such situation, in such cases, still the sensitivity to the patient will be there, because you are covering with the natural tooth with the cast coping. So that risk is always there. At the time of the treatment, the patient may not have any sensitivity, but later on he may develop. That risk is there. So you have to decide when you are doing a treatment, you have to make sure, and if you are giving, if you are doing it on teeth which are not endodontically treated, then you have to make sure that in a long term you are deciding that the patient will not have sensitivity in future. So next is when you are doing endodontic therapy, and in such cases you are covering with an amalgam plug. So although amalgam is very not very common nowadays, but still, previously they used to they used to do endodontic treatment and then cover with the amalgam plugs, and over that they used to give the overdenture. But then the chances of breakage, since amalgam is brittle, the chances of breakage of the amalgam plug was very high, and that would compromise on retention and stability of the prosthesis in the future. Third option is wherein you are doing an endodontic treatment, and you are covering with a cast coping. So when you are doing endodontic treatment, once you have done endodontic treatment, you have freedom to reduce the tooth. So once you have done the endodontic treatment, you have freedom to reduce. So you have freedom to reduce in such a way that you can, after reduction, you can give a cast coping over a reduced tooth, and then over that you can give an overdenture, or you can make an overdenture over that. Next is attachments. So attachments is, in order to improve the retention and stability of the prosthesis, you can give an attachment. Now this attachment can be extracoronal, or that can be an intracoronal attachment. Okay, so extracoronal attachments are basically those attachments which derive support and retention from the contours which are of the tooth from outwards, not within the confines. And if it is deriving support and retention from within the tooth contours, then it is an intercoronal attachment. So we will take up this in detail in the next video. Next is, what are the factors which influences the choice of overdentures? Now when we are talking about the factors which influences the choice of overdenture, you have 2-3 things which you have to keep in mind. That is, how much is the available interarch space. That is very, very important. If the availability of interarch space is not adequate, then you have to make sure that you have to do endodontic treatment. You have to cover it with a cast coping, and then reduce, so that you can reduce the amount of your space requirement, so that you have given a coping. Over that you have to make sure that your prosthesis, you have enough space for the prosthesis also. So one thing is the available interarch space, then the desired crown root ratio, whether you are having a desired crown root ratio or not. So that will also influence the type of overdenture, which type of overdenture you want to go ahead with. Type of coping, whether you are going for a simple cast coping, or you are going for a double crown system. Now what is a double crown system? Wherein you are having a tooth structure, it is RCT treated tooth, and you are covering with a cast coping, that is a primary coping. This is primary coping. Now if we have another prosthesis over this will be a secondary coping. So this type of double crown system is sometimes referred to as a Marburg double crown system. Wherein you are covering the tooth with a primary coping, primary cast coping, and the prosthesis which is having the secondary coping, the framework which is having the secondary coping, is a part of the framework design of the final prosthesis. So that is covering the primary coping. So this is double crown system. So that will be influenced by one, interarch space and the desired crown root ratio. Thirdly, the number of teeth which are present. If you have only 2 teeth present, or 3 teeth present, or 4 teeth present, it will increase the retention and stability of the prosthesis. Your choice will be altered by the presence of number of teeth. The more the number of teeth, better it is. Third is the location of the abutments. Yes, whether the abutment tooth is a single rooted or it is a multi-rooted. Definitely a single rooted tooth, say the central incisor is present and say one molar is present. So in order to preserve that, if the patient is having 2 molars on one side and a central incisor and another say premolar there, definitely that patient will be having a better prognosis than the previous one. So the number of abutment which are present and the location of abutment. If it is a multi-rooted tooth, you have a better retention and stability of the prosthesis. Next is the cost of the treatment. How you have to anyhow weigh the cost, check the prognosis of the treatment, and check the desire. I always take the feedback from the patient, that what he or she wants. Next is the maintenance. So in order to give a very sophisticated attachments, or you are planning for a treatment, and the patient is not going to maintain that, the chances of failure of a treatment would be very high. So definitely you have to consider that as well. And then you have whether you are going for a totally tooth supported or a tissue supported prosthesis. Now totally tooth supported will definitely be dependent on the number of abutment teeth which are there. So if you have say more increased number of teeth here, then definitely it will be a totally tooth supported prosthesis. And if you have very less number of teeth, say only 2 molars are present on the either side, rest everything there is no other abutment teeth, then it will be a tooth and tissue supported prosthesis. So accordingly you have to make a choice between the type of copings, the type of overdentures, which type of overdentures you are going to select. So we come to end of this presentation. I will meet you next time with the attachments of overdentures. We are going to discuss all the attachments of overdentures and the maintenance of overdentures. Till then, thank you for watching the video.